So instead of this sense with the early poetry of somebody just, speaking, and insisting sort of that everybody else in the room be quiet, with Stone Floods, what happened was that I became aware, basically, of the fact that there were other voices in the room, and they weren't going to shut up for me, so I better live with them. So, a few from Stone Floods. Fast rivers. Okay, think about fast. Fast river. It's both one moving very fast, it's also a river stopped. Think about Stone Floods, the title. What's it? A stone, or stones, a stony area that's flooded, or turn floods into stone, an imperative. It's both. And for me, it's a dialectic. It's doing both at the same time. It's not one rather than the other. It's all of these meanings at once. If you're writing poetry and you're going to sort of go along to language and poke it with a stick, then you're responsible for all the meanings that crawl out of it. Do something with them. Train them. Start a flea circus. This is the first 6 lines of this are my own, and the next 3 stanzas are from early Renaissance stuff by Jorge Manrique, the Coplas, Spanish poet. Just taken from, I think there were 100 of these by him, but I was only able to translate 3 as I wanted. Right at the very instant of delivery, the messengers begin to fail and are already exhausted. When we see the moments so instantaneously spent, reckoning surely we regard time not yet come extinct, let not the fool delude himself, that which he foresees will last no longer than the bygone show, and all things thus shall pass. Our lives are fast rivers, soon delivered to the sea of death, where to go all dominions down exhausted and are quenched. There must find the slightest rill with tributary stream and flood, all then levelled utterly, day labourer and lord. This world is but a road to one wherein is no abiding grief. He needs due bearing who would not from that true path fall off. The setting out is at our birth. We travel as we live, dying at last complete the course, and in that death lie down. The Manrique stuff it's a classic early Renaissance lament. It's life is so short, death dominates us. But the 6 lines, very brief lines that I've got at the beginning, right at the very instant of delivery, the messengers begin to fail and are already exhausted. I was beginning to find out at that point within Stone Floods what I was actually doing, and I began to be able to have an argument rather than just sort of sitting writing soul-felt lyrics. I knew another poet who had in her work angels, and I'm not particularly friendly to angels. I can't stand New Age stuff. They disgust me. But angelos it's the Greek for messenger. So I was thinking about this on the idea of, Kafka, I think, has a parable about everybody being given the choice of being either a king or a messenger between kings. And then they found that nobody had chosen to be a king. Everybody was a messenger. So they were running around, but they had no messages. For me, the idea was of people with using. I'm going to have to wake up early tomorrow morning to do a workshop at which you're going to be, and I've been yelling off against communicative language. That we're all used to using language communicatively. Technical manuals, scientific language, reportage, the media, everything. But there's obviously, on the other hand, and advertising realises this very strongly, that there are loads of things in language which are affecting us in ways which are hidden from us. It may seem to be communicating one thing, but in fact it's communicating something quite different. A good political speech does the same thing, so on. But it's the assumption that people know the truth and are completely in control of their own language and are just delivering a message. I'm just telling you this, and it's completely objectively true. And I think, well, if it's completely objectively true, then who are you that's telling me? Why aren't you staining this? Why is this coming to you uncontaminated by you? I don't trust you if you do that. I want to know the provenance. I want to know where this language is coming from, this information you're giving. What's your interest? So at the beginning of this, right at the very instant of delivery, the messengers begin to fail and are already exhausted. They may very well be right at the instant of delivery, but as soon as they deliver the message, a messenger is failing. They've got nothing else to do. The message is given over. They're already exhausted. They're exhausted of their meaning. Whereas the language, this sort of language, my claim is the language of poetry, is not exhausted in that way. It's not spent as soon as it's used. It continues. The Turlough. Turloughs are in the west of Ireland, areas of karstic limestone, furrowed by sort of sinkholes. And when water lands there, it may form a pool for a while, but it drains away down through the sinkholes. But if you get a real cloudburst, maybe miles away, maybe 10, 20 miles away, if it's a wide enough water basin, the water table rises. And if you're in the lowest part, you can actually get the water coming up through these sinkholes. And I was in a part of Ireland near the Rahashan Turlough. I spent a lot of my childhood. And I was used to this, going out having to sort of save sheep as the water was sort of pumping up out of the ground. And this is sort of when I started writing poetry again. This is about the second or third poem that I wrote, and I immediately stopped and thought, Jesus H, I'm never going to be able to write as good as this again. I may as well give up at this point. And what really impressed me about what I'd written, I'm easily impressed, was the fact that it's sort of an A-B-A-B-A-B type structure, and the A, if we call it that, is a very freely a totally free line in terms of metre and rhythm and everything else. The only thing is that they all end with the word elsewhere. And in between there are verses of 4 lines. And the 4 lines are, each line is a set number of syllables. So it's totally rigid. And then it opens again, and then it tightens, and then it opens. And that's it. And one of the things I liked was that is the first time that I ever used this sort of a technique where, as you're reading down, Emerson showed this in one of Shakespeare's sonnets, which gets over-punctuated in modern editions. But the original edition of it was just, you had each line and just a comma after each and a full stop after the last one. And he showed that each line in it, as you read it, you can read up or you can read down. And as you read each line with the line above it, it alters the sense of the line above it. So you read particular lines with one meaning, and they're subtly, or in some cases quite aggressively altered by the meaning of the line after. And you don't know, you can't punctuate it and preserve the full vitality of the poem, the full richness of it. So I like this idea, and I thought I'd love to do that sometime, and I found suddenly that I had done. So the Turlough. It is raining elsewhere, vertical rivers reverse, stone floods the karst domain, each sink turns source. Rock brings forth fruit elsewhere. The action of the clock runs down through fissured hours, wells up lost time. All is not lost elsewhere. The emigrant returns. Old loves reach out their arms, go leaves fly up. Time heals old wounds elsewhere. Bullet returns fire from flesh to gum. The dried stain weeps, bone knits again. No mark gets the cold deck elsewhere. Boxed by his court of spades, Jack wakes from his stone watch that springs each arch. London Bridge is falling down elsewhere. Circuits and gates collapse in sound, the face, the glass composed breaks down. Raw head finds bloody bones elsewhere, vast hands stop at the stretch. Knuckle of blazing gas and wrist of stars. The gods explode this, turn elsewhere. Red giant and white dwarf come in a blue shift, Venus meets Mars. There is thunder now elsewhere. Under an incandescent sky, flash floods spread out, this lake is on no map. And the movement is from a very narrow position in the Turlough, just watching the sinkholes, to, at the end, it's cosmic, it's the opposite of the Big Bang. Eventually, if there's more gravity than sort of centrifugal force in the universe will start to implode on itself, and then you get a blue shift rather than a red shift, and so on. Anyway, it amused me.